Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1270, 1270, Monday, October 26th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so again, there's no Spygate news to report, so let's stay on this issue we've been on now for the past 2 or 3 weeks regarding the issue with the Hunter Biden laptop and now other things that are piling on top of that. So what we have seen, really, especially since the debate, what we have seen is that the floodgates are now collapsing on the Biden's story. Joe Biden's story that he had no knowledge of Hunter Biden's dealings and business dealings. He was taking no money. Hunter's taking no money and all this. This is all completely unbelievable. And especially since the debates, now we've had quite a few things happen. It seems like almost every day there are new revelations coming out, more examination of these text and now photos and everything else. And now we have actual people coming out, human whistleblowers. We have the one man who's in prison, one of Hunter Biden's partners who's in prison, who turned over his Gmail account to Peter Schweitzer. He's now going through that and confirming a lot of the things that are in the Hunter Biden emails and text. Then we, of course, had this Mr. Bobulinski, Tony Bobulinski, come out a couple hours before the debate, make his statement corroborating a lot of things that are in those emails and texts. And of course, we now know that he's turned his information over to the FBI and is supposed to be meeting with Ron Johnson's committee sometime this week. And there will be more. There will be more. And I suspect that every day leading up to and even going beyond the election, we'll continue to get more and more and more information. It won't just be in the form of documents or texts or whatever. You're going to see people coming out of the woodwork. Because as people understand that this scandal really has some teeth in it, there's going to be a lot of people that the Bidens dealt with who are going to want to make sure that they don't get caught up in something and they get caught up in something that gets them in trouble. So a lot of people like Mr. Bobulinski are going to want to come out. Now, his motivations were different, but there are going to be people who were involved in a lot of these things who maybe didn't do anything wrong, but just the fact that their name is going to come up because they're associated with the Bidens in some way, they're going to want to come out and clear their names or want to come forward and get out ahead of things. They want to, they want to do that before the FBI comes knocking on their door and causing them a lot of problems. So, although, again, when you're talking about the FBI, the current FBI, it's a dangerous proposition. I mean, a pretty brave move for Bobulinski to go to the FBI because, knowing the way that they cover up and protect for the ruling elite, Bobulinski could just as easy find the FBI slapping the cuffs on him and charging him with crimes while protecting the Bidens. I think there's about a 50-50 shot. I don't know if he was advised of that. Maybe he has more confidence in the FBI than I do. But I certainly wouldn't have gone to the FBI. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, especially if you're coming to the FBI to provide evidence which could be very damaging to one of the deep state swamp creatures. But everything is continuing to come out. It's like the floodgates have just opened. We're getting more and more revelations, text messages, people coming out of the woodwork. Mr. Bobulinski, this guy who was in jail, giving his stuff to Schweitzer. There's going to be more. This stuff just keeps on coming out. It's a gusher. And it's going to be nearly impossible for the media and their friends in the Democratic Party and associates to continue to hide this. And the media is going to take a beating on this one. They really are. They're going to take a beating on this one, and they know it. But they're willing to do it, hoping they can limp Joe along to the finish line. That is not going to work either. So they made a very bad decision, and it's going to come back to bite them right in the ass. So you have some interesting theories out there, and there's some text messages that people have really been focusing on. For instance, there's the one text where Hunter is texting his daughter, and he's talking about the fact that he's been taking care of the family for the past 30 years, And then he goes on to say, well, and you'll continue to get this money, but I won't be asking you to give half of it to me or give up half of that money, suggesting that over these years, that Hunter Biden for the past 30 years has been taking care of the family, he's obviously been having to give back a fairly healthy percentage to Joe, his dad. And it's clear from these conversations that Hunter is having that obviously it's clear that he's a very confused and disoriented sort of person. He's got a lot of drug issues, obviously has some other issues as well, having to do with controlling his sexual deviancy. We know he's an alcoholic. And he's tired of being the bagman. And that's what you get out of these emails. He's like a person crying out for help. He's saying this to his daughter, like, you know, he's basically saying, you know, I've been pimped out by Dad, and I'm not happy about it. That's what he's saying. He's very unhappy about the situation he's in and how he got here and what's been going on. That is the meat and potatoes of the point that he's trying to get across. He's a person you can see is crying out in these messages about, you know, he's not happy with his life and about what he's been, it seems, forced to do or motivated to do. There's also another really damning text where he says, where he says that he views his father's name and the political influence in the family, with the family name, as their only asset. That's a very damaging statement when taken in context to what he's talking about in that email. Now, there's a couple theories out there, and I'm not sure if I buy into them or not, but there's one particular theory where I've been hearing this for about a week now, that there are some that are suggesting, because of the nature of these emails, and you have Hunter essentially laying all this out, that some are suggesting that Hunter Biden was too smart to leave those computers there and not come pick them up, knowing what was on them and how incriminating they were, which is making some people, along with what they're reading in these texts, to suggest that Hunter Biden is wanting to get caught. He's wanting someone to put a stop to it. Maybe he doesn't feel that he can stop it, and he needs someone else to stop it. And by allowing the content on these computers to be discovered, that somehow that will lead to something that will cause this all to stop, and that he won't have to go out and do this anymore and be the bag man for the family, be pimped out by Joe anymore. And I think that that's a plausible theory. It's possible, but I mean, he incriminates himself a lot in this, so I'm not so sure how smart that is. But then again, Hunter Biden's doesn't strike me as being terribly smart in a lot of ways. And he is a desperate person at this point. He might be willing to go that far. Maybe he thinks that's the only solution to the problem. But to want to destroy your family's crime business, take yourself out in the process, maybe he just wants some help. You know, it's hard to say. I mean, it's an interesting theory, but it could also just be that Hunter's got a lot of money, and that he's hooked on meth or crack or coke or whatever, and drunk all the time and preoccupied with other things, and he just dropped the laptops off and just decided at some point he didn't care if he got them back. Maybe never really thinking that the content on them would end up in the hands of the FBI or a congressional committee or something like that. So I don't know. You know, anything's possible. I think we'll need a lot more information to know if that's true. But certainly if that's what Hunter Biden's intention was, he's pretty much succeeded, because this is what we see that's happening. And you got to wonder how far that the power brokers in the Democratic Party are going to let this go with Hunter and Joe Biden and family, because eventually this is going to cut into other people. You can already see now it's cutting into John Kerry and his kid, his stepson, and we've also, there's apparently something that bleeds into the Clinton Foundation. This is going to start bleeding into a lot of other people. And remember, what the Bidens are doing here is not just Democrats, it's Republicans do it too, and it's not just the Bidens. This is probably true of a lot of the politicians in Washington are probably involved in this very type of thing. And this could make a lot of people very uncomfortable, and you have to wonder at some point, especially as Biden's stock is dropping and his hopes of winning the election are dwindling away every single day. You have to wonder how much, because the Bidens are now becoming possibly a great liability to a lot of powerful people, and it may just become easier at some point to give up the Bidens, throw them under the bus, and protect everyone else. At some point, the liability of the Bidens on the rest of the swamp, both Republicans and Democrats, may be just too much to bear, and they all may get together in the smoky back rooms and say, look, we got to dump the Bidens. We just got to throw them under the bus, let them be prosecuted, let them be whatever's going to happen to them. We got to distance ourselves from them, and we have to just circle the wagons and throw the Bidens into the lion's den. You got to wonder how, because this is expanding every single day. Now, there's also, over the weekend, some really damaging photos dropped. And this is coming from another organization, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. If you're not, let me kind of fill you in. And I'm not an expert on this, but I have been watching some of these videos and looking at some of this material. And what I'm talking about is this group that comes out of Asia called Lude Media, L-U-D-E Media. If you Google or go to YouTube and type in the search box, Lude, L-U-D-E Media, you can pull up their videos. Now, they're Chinese-speaking people, they're Asians. Not sure where in the world they're located, but I would assume they're not on the mainland of China or they would have been shut down. And apparently this is run by some billionaire Chinese guy who's anti-communist. He's opposed to the PLA, opposed to the Chinese government, obviously. And he seems to be wanting to take credit for a lot of material drops that are happening, and he's promising all sorts of things, and he gets real specific about what we're talking about, including making the claim that the Bidens were actually giving the Chinese government names of CIA people who were operating, I guess, in China or other places around the world against China, and that some of these people may have even been killed. And, of course, they're the ones that drop these really damaging pics of Hunter Biden, apparently smoking crack, being with prostitutes, these types of things. And they say that they have 10,000 more photos that are even more damaging, as well as more documents and more things that are going to be very, very damaging. So clearly this Chinese group run by this billionaire, and it's an organization. They have researchers. They have a professional studio. I mean, it's a very professional looking operation. Again, I'm not sure where they're out of, but their primary opponent is the Chinese government, the Communist Party, and the PLA, which is the army, and the political army in China. So this is a very interesting group. They're kind of on the outskirts right now of everything, but they are having an impact, and a lot of this information are dropping. I think a lot of people are kind of hesitant in the mainstream media, or even on Fox or Giuliani or any of these people to engage it. But Steve Bannon has, and Steve Bannon seems to be showing that they have some credibility, whether they do or not, or what their intentions are. It's not 100% clear, because you can never know about things like this, but they certainly are making a lot of accusations, dropping a lot of information, these photos and things that are very, very damaging to Hunter Biden and to the Chinese government, particularly the Chinese Communist Party, the PLA, which is their primary adversary. They're not necessarily, again, they're Chinese guys. I don't think they have any particular love for or hate for Biden either way. They're looking to damage and expose the Communist Party in China. The fact that the Bidens are caught up in this is just, I think, collateral damage. The Bidens are collateral damage to the group over at Lude Media. So, again, it is Chinese. Now, some of their broadcast will be in Chinese. If you go watch some of their videos, and they'll have American subtitles, English, I should say, subtitles at the bottom of the video. And sometimes they'll actually have the Chinese guys talking, but they'll have the volume turned down kind of low, and they'll have an English-speaking person talking above them so you can understand what they're talking about. And again, if you watch just some of these videos, the things that these guys are talking about, this Chinese media organization dropping is just incredible. Some of the claims and accusations they're making, and they claim to have the documentation and the photos to back every bit of it up, and that they're going to keep dropping this information. So I think that this group could come more into play. And what's tricky about them for the media, which is trying to cover all this up, is that these guys are not Russians; they're Chinese. So that makes it more difficult, I think, for the media to cover this up. So again, I mean, the floodgates are being overrun with information. It's every day now. It was a really big drop again. It was this Chinese media organization that dropped those lewd photos from lewd media. Dropped the LEWD pics Friday night, I think it was, when I saw them. So I think between now and the election and beyond, you're going to continue to see more and more and more of this information. Biden's original story that they don't take money from foreign governments. He's never known about Hunter's business. This is all, you can forget about all that. The laptop is Hunter's. The emails and texts are legit. The pics are legit. And they completely contradict everything that Joe Biden is saying. And I don't think that the media is going to be able to keep this down until the election. I mean, they've already failed, really. It's out there. Everyone who wants to know about it can find out about it. It's Facebook and Twitter are censoring it, but it's still quite a few people on YouTube talking about it. Lewd Media is still up on YouTube. They haven't been taken down. And too many other people too many other sites. In fact, Lewd Media, I think they did get their Twitter and Facebook taken down, but they went over to Parler. And now Lewd Media is posting all this stuff over on Parler. There's just too much out there that the media is not going to be able to cover this up. And to tell you just how damaging this all is, we learned Sunday morning, at about 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, someone at the RNC who's in the know tweeted out that he has heard that the Biden campaign has called a lid on Biden for the rest of the election, for the remaining 9-10 days. For the next 9 or 10 days, it appears that Joe Biden is not going to be out campaigning. Now, one person is suggesting that's because he got apparently very, very angry on Sunday morning, or maybe it was Saturday. It was either Saturday or Sunday. Biden went supposed to speak at some sort of a rally or what have you. And along the route to get there, there were 2 or 3 miles long of Trump supporters. And apparently he had to drive past this long, long line of Trump supporters who were, basically cheering and stuff like that. And apparently Biden got really, really angry about that. And this is happening all over. It's happening every time there's a Biden rally. There's 20 times more Trump supporters there than there are Biden people. I mean, he even had brought out some big name people, John Bon Jovi and people like that, and they can only get like 40 people, while there was, 1,000 out there outside the parking lot, Trump supporters heckling them. So clearly the frustration has set in with Joe Biden, and it could be the frustration from that. Maybe they think that it's hurting them. That every time he does a rally, there's more Trump people there than Biden people. I think in a lot of ways, this has always been their strategy, though, is to keep Biden out of there, only bring him out just once a week or so, just to remind people he is actually running. But I think that their plan always has been that they could literally win this election by just putting a Democrat on the ticket and allowing people to vote, believing that the majority of the country hates Trump so bad that they're all going to vote against Trump, and they'll vote for anyone as an alternative, including Joe Biden. So this is what I think's been in the mind of a lot of Democrats. America hates Trump so bad, wants to get rid of Trump so bad, that we don't even have to run anybody. But we have to have someone on the ticket, obviously, so we'll put Biden on there. But no one has to go out and campaign or whatever. We just have to sit back and allow people who hate Trump to go out and vote. I think that this was their plan. This is a disastrous plan. I don't know whoever came up with that, what the thinking was on that, but it's a disastrous plan, and it will fail, and it will fail miserably. And now it's too late to do anything about it because we're 10 days out from the election. No matter how much Biden went out and campaigned now, he wouldn't be able to make up the ground. And if it's true, what we're hearing, that he's going to have a lid on his campaign for the next remaining 10 days, that he's not going to go out and campaign at all, that is beyond suicidal. I mean, if that happens, if Biden does not go out and make some campaign stops in the next 10 days, he will be defeated in a massive landslide. He could lose states like New York, Illinois, California, Colorado. I mean, he could literally lose solid blue states. If you just don't show up, people have to start thinking, damn, there must be something wrong. And there is something wrong. Something bad wrong. And then, of course, I guess the funniest thing that happened over the weekend was this crazy gaffe, probably one of the worst gaffes I've ever heard Biden make. And I don't know if it was a Freudian slip or a gaffe, but basically I'm sure many of you saw the clip. And what's extraordinary about this is that he's reading this. He's looking down. He's reading it. He's focusing on it. He says the first couple lines and he looks up. Then he gets his hands working, because he's looking at the camera because he really wants to make this point. And he's breaking it down kind of slow in a broken up sort of manner. He's looking at it, and Biden says, "We have put together the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics." We've put together the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. And it's something he's talking about, preface that by saying something we began in the Obama administration. I mean, talk about a Freudian slip or whatever. I don't know who wrote that or if he misread it, but he's literally reading it off of paper. I mean, it's not like he, missed a couple of words or missed a word or something. I mean, this was literally a statement he was reading off of paper. It's the gaffe of the century. I mean, this is just extraordinary. But he's had a bad couple of days, and the Democrats in general had a very bad week. And today, Monday, I assume Amy Coney Barrett will become a Supreme Court justice. And it's like I said about 2 or 3 weeks ago when this process began. I said, if that happens and they get Barrett on the court before the election, that's going to be extremely demoralizing to the left. And if you look at all these Biden appearances that are being, dwarfed by Trump supporters showing up, that is also very, very demoralizing. Then you see the shifts in the polls, very demoralizing. It appears that in Ohio, the Democrats and Biden have almost pulled out. They're sacrificing Ohio. They don't believe they're going to win here, and they're not going to win here. Trump's going to win here by at least, he won here by 8.5 last time. I think he'll win here by at least 10 this time. And this is carrying over. You're now seeing he's pretty much pulled away in Florida, if the polls are correct, and I don't know if they are or not, but, showing 5 points, Trump's up 5 points. But I don't need polls. You don't have to pay attention to polls too much when you get the last 30 days before the vote. All you have to do is pay attention to where the candidate and the candidate's surrogates are going and where the money is being pulled out or the money is being ramped up or moved around. Follow the money and follow where the candidates and their surrogates are going. That'll tell you what their internal polls are telling them. So if you're seeing them pulling out of Ohio, taking their heavy guns out of Florida while they're making appearances and pouring money into places like Minnesota, New Jersey, that tells you that they're actually so concerned at this late state of the game about Minnesota and New Jersey, two typically pretty solid blue states. They're so worried about them that they got to put resources in there. They're pulling resources out of Ohio and Florida to put resources in there. So, and you hear John James now up in Michigan running for Senate is a one point advantage up there now. You have these Democratic mayors and members of Congress who are pleading with Nancy Pelosi to sign this COVID bill before the election. They're taking a lot of heat on that as well. A lot of people know it's totally political. So there's a lot of indicators that the Democrats are terrified. They're not just terrified they're going to lose, but they're terrified that they're going to lose bad, really bad. And if you follow the money, and if you follow the candidates and their surrogates, where they're going or not going, or where the money is going or not going, it tells you a lot that they are right now on full defense. They're trying to hold on to what's always been traditional solid blue states. They're not even attempting to make inroads into places that were red states, and they're giving up in places that are traditional battleground states. States that they normally would fight for to the very last minute. States that they'd be pouring money into the last hour, up to the vote. You know, having people on the ground in those states up into the last minute when people go to vote. They're pulling those resources out. In Ohio, the heaviest hitter they sent into Florida was Kamala Harris, and she was down in Miami, and she too was on her way to the place where she was supposed to go speak, and she ran into literally thousands and thousands and thousands of Hispanic people in Miami lining the highway for miles and miles and miles that she had to drive by and look at that. So it's not just Joe Biden, it's Kamala Harris. It's also seeing this heavy Trump support from traditional hardcore blue areas. I mean, the fact that she had to go to Miami at this late state of the game, a Democrat is in Miami they're trying to save Miami. If Trump wins the southern part of Florida, it's going to be we'll know early in the evening, because we usually get the numbers on South Florida fairly early in the evening. By 7:30, 8 o'clock, we usually have the numbers. If we see South Florida early on in the night, if we see South Florida, Miami area even tilt towards Trump, even if they lose that area, but they gain a lot, it's going to be a landslide election. Landslide. We won't have to wait till midnight. We won't have to wait for Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. If you see Southern Florida, which is solid blue, it has been. I mean, Hillary won that pretty handily. Trump won because he won the Panhandle, Central Florida, and the upper Gulf Coast. And it was close in Florida. If you see Trump and Republicans do well in the southern part of Florida, down on Miami, that's gonna be the indicator that'll probably carry out throughout the rest of the country. We could see Arizona go Republican. I don't know about California, New York. That's tough. New Jersey, that's tough. But I think it means that Trump will hold on to all those battleground states in the Midwest and the upper Midwest. It means he'll probably hold on to Wisconsin, and he may even be able to flip Minnesota this time. And that would give him the whole Midwest. I mean, all the way from the bottom to the top, including the South. I don't even think North Carolina and Georgia are in play as much as they're saying. I think Trump's going to win both. I think North Carolina could be pretty close, but I think Georgia will end up being solid red. As you get over into the Southwest, you could see Arizona, Nevada, red. I don't know about Washington and Oregon. That's tougher. I live so far from there that I just don't understand the political climate there. I know the large population centers are very far left, but I think in a lot of cases, a lot of people on the West Coast that are on the right just don't vote because they know they don't have any choice. But we might see something happen in this year's election where we actually see people who normally don't vote out in California, Oregon, and Washington. We might see some conservative or center-right people out there who normally do not vote may go out and vote because they may feel like they actually have a chance. So, but I'd say watch Southern Florida. The fact that Kamala Harris is down in Miami over the weekend, she shouldn't be there. That should be solid lock. The fact that she was there, they've got some internal polling that are telling them that they're in trouble with the Hispanic voters down in that area. You also have a very, very large LGBT community down in that area. A lot of LGBT people from the Midwest or whatever, Central Plains and whatever, they like to migrate down that area. It's a very gay-friendly area. So I know 2 or 3 gay people who moved down there. So for that reason, a lot of gay people down there, openly gay people. They can walk around and just be open about their gayness, and as opposed to like here in Southern Ohio, you still get looks and stuff. People look at you kind of funny, but not down in Miami. It's totally open down there. So they want to be where they feel comfortable, and that's fine. That's fine with me. So, you know, this walk away movement, of course, Brandon Straka, he's a gay guy, so he has, I think he's brought a lot of gay people into the Trump orbit, and he's done a hell of a job. You know, Brandon Straka has been a force, you know, and I think he's probably had a lot more impact than people want to think, and the type of people that he brings from the area that he's working in, the LGBT community. Those are typically people who really help pad the numbers in these blue cities. And if those people go Trump, they could definitely affect the numbers. I don't know that they would overturn solid blue places into red, but they will put a hell of a scare into the establishment, and they could affect local races. So here we are with about 10 days to go. The floodgates are just, you know, being overrun with information, not just from what's being learned by Giuliani, and now we know that the Wall Street Journal also was given access to what Giuliani's got. Kimberly Strassel and two other Wall Street Journal reporters are now studying that information, and we're expecting, she wrote one article, just a brief article over the weekend. We can expect more from her and her colleagues at the Wall Street Journal on what's supposed to be a fairly epic major story coming before the week is up. And that will get some serious attention. It's the Wall Street Journal. We will see if social media tries to do to them what they're still doing to the New York Post. They're still blocking the New York Post, Twitter and Facebook. And of course, we learned that. So we'll see what happens there, along with what this Chinese group, Lewd Media, we'll see what they drop. They're also talking about dropping some major things here in the next 10 days. Although their timeline is not based on the election. Their timeline is something totally different. Again, they're not Biden haters or Trump supporters. They're just, their issue is with the Chinese government, the communist Chinese government. So they're on a different agenda. The American election doesn't really matter that much to them. The Biden stuff that they have is just, the Bidens are collateral damage to them. It could be anybody. It's not personal to the Bidens. It's just that they make the argument that the Chinese communists targeted the Bidens and were successful at capturing them. So we'll see what happens as the shoes continue to drop. I expect there'll be more physical witnesses, like Mr. Bobulinski. I expect that there'll be more Mr. Bobulinskis coming out over the next, possibly before the election, more documents, more things coming out every single day. And it's just building and building and building. We will see if the media can hold it up another 10 days without the story just exploding, which I think it already pretty much has. They've destroyed their credibility in the process, which they've done many times before. It doesn't seem to matter to them. So there's a lot of things in play right now, but as far as how we're looking going into the election, things are looking really good right now, not just for a Trump victory, but a Trump landslide. If Biden goes into the basement for the next 10 days, if that is true, and he does not campaign for the next 10 days, you are going to be looking at a massive landslide for Trump and a demoralizing, humiliating defeat for the left. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back as soon as there's news to report. See you. Bye.